G'day everyone, you are watching the Space Slugs coming to you live with another Shatterpoint stream. It's going to be very exciting. We are now firmly in the elimination rounds of the current TTS episode. So this is the Never Tell Me the Odds bracket of elimination. This is the top 16. Where everyone from the brackets actually that went one loss is now in this bracket, and they're fighting for an invitation to the Masters event that will happen after all the episodes take place. So, of course, my name's Tom. I'm very excited to bring you this match. Unfortunately, it was a bit late notice, so I wasn't able to secure a co-host, but we will still have a very good time. Now, let me just see who won the priority role. Looks like it was Richmid. So we've got Richmid going first. Both of these players were in fact bringing the Sabotage Showdown mission. So yeah, that's basically who we are. Let me just jump into these rosters. So we've both got some Maul action, but we've got a very different take on Maul, which is going to be very, very exciting to bring you guys. So this is Richmid's side. He is bringing Lord Maul, Gar Saxon, and the Mandalorian Super Commandos. So a lot of Mandalorians are stronger together combination there, and some out of activation movement with Gar Saxon. Lord Maul is an excellent piece. He displaces, he attacks, he protects, he does all the good stuff. He is also a Dathomirian, so he has some nice synergy with Mother Talzin. Mother Talzin is bringing along Savage Oppress and the Night Sister Acolyte. So alongside Gar, she also has some out-of-activation movement capacity, so she can move other Dathomirians, those being Maul, Savage, or the Night Sisters, and she gets some really, really good out-of-activation attacks if you wound, or if your opponent wounds some enemy characters. Savage is just a massive beat stick. He's really cool. He will be able to move twice at the start of Mother Talzin's activation if the distances are measured correctly, and then we've got the Night Sister Acolytes bringing along some expose for Dathomirian. So a bit of ranged, a bit of combat as well, so that's going to be really, really cool. And we're playing against some Inquisitorius. Isn't that exciting? So Godlyness seems to be really riding the Inquisitorius train. So he's bringing Grand Inquisitor alongside Jango Fett and Fifth Brother. So yeah, basically Fifth Brother's shtick is that he can break ties. So if it's 1-for-1, he will basically take the objective with his inquisitorial mandate ability down the bottom. And he has a few ways of doing that as well. So you can force push everyone away with force repulse. He also adds some enfeeble triggers, so basically coordinated fire expose, but for Inquisitorius characters, and he's really tanky with protection and steadfast. Godliness is also bringing Maul, so that's really cool. We know exactly what he does, and we've also got Obi-Wan Kenobi for some board control and the bounty hunters, which Godliness is essentially pretending are Inquisitorius in this roster, I believe. So Fifth Brother will be able to, of course, add some expose shenanigans through Enfeeble for them, and the Grand Inquisitor will also be able to move them at the start of his activation should we decide to do that. Okay, so let's get a good view of the board. So, of course, Richmid was first, and he dropped down Maul on the top right-hand side there, and Maul was chosen to counter Maul for Godliness. So basically the top half of the board here is a Maul action, and then we've had Mother Talzin go across the Grand Inquisitor. So the Grand Inquisitor will be really interesting here because Mother Talzin is in fact a Force user. So this will be probably the first moment in the game where we will be able to see the temple records are quite complete against a ranged attack. So let me just zoom in over here on that. So basically, oh no, we won't, because it has to be a melee. Ignore everything I was just about to say. Yeah, we've got a few Force users that will allow the Grand Inquisitor to become quite tanky. So we've got Savage, we've got Mother Talzin, and of course we have Darth Maul or Lord Maul as well. So temple records are quite complete, will be online, which is quite exciting. All right, so let's see what objective we drew. Of course, the deployment is always the same, but it is going to be shut down the alarms. So stick to the plan will be our Shatterpoint trigger, and that, of course, will be at the start of the Shatterpoint unit's activation, refresh 1 force. So not going to be huge for Maul activations, but it will be pretty big for, let's say, Jango activations and for, Grand Inquisitor or something similar. But yeah, both players will get some good mileage out of that. So thanks everyone for joining us here. If you do want to, chuck us a follow, chuck us a subscribe or a like on YouTube if you are watching this after I upload it. Yeah, and thanks for watching. If you do want to throw your voice behind one of these players, do let us know. It's going to be a really exciting game. Are we going for Godlyness or are we going for Richmid? It doesn't look like these guys are playing with a clock, so I won't start the clock either. Let's do a clock. Why not? Let's just see how long they've been playing for. It should be popping up soon. There we go. Cool. So usually it's a 2-hour timer, guys. So we can just run off that and see how we go. So Richmid has promptly reserved Mother Talzin, and unfortunately he's drawn Savage Oppress. So probably not the one that he really wanted to draw, just because, you know, you want Mother Talzin to be able to activate Savage and double move him up into the midline, just so he can start contesting pretty early on. But there we have it. Okay, so we are thinking about some Savage movements. He is pretty quick. He's got the move, and then he does, of course, have, I think it's called Dark Fury or Rush or something. Let me have a look. It's called Furious Rush. So he basically gets a 1-force dash, and if he's got an injured token, then he also gets to advance instead of that dash. So he can be pretty nice and quick. So Richmid is, of course, just going to probably take cover or use the ingress point there. And then dash and maybe take cover to put Savage on the midline. He's pretty good. I mean, he can be displaced relatively easily, but he does have a really nice expertise tree, in that if he rolls 2 expertise, he gets a jump. So unless he's pinned or exposed, usually he's pretty capable of staying on a point and keeping it, really, unless he gets doubled out or completely displaced and not attacked. And of course, Godlyness does have some really good capacity to do that. He's got Maul, who can expose Savage after taking him off the point with There Is No Place to Run. And then, of course, he also has Django Fett, which will pin him as well. Cool. So there we go. We've got a take cover happening, and Savage Oppress will be claiming the midline. Now, if you are typing in the chat, guys, unfortunately, I'm unable to see it. I'm having a little bit of issue. But what I'll do is I'm just going to bring up the stream on my phone just to see if I can contribute in the chat or see what you guys are saying, if anything. Don't feel pressured. Okay, so what have we got? We have drawn the 5th brother for Godlyness, and that seems okay. I mean, he's pretty capable of just walking up there. I guess there is a chance that he just gets doubled out by the Night Sisters, of course, and you probably want him to try and cause some shenanigans. But if you are feeling a little bit force sensitive or force tight, then, you know, just go and don't worry about reserving, of course. And it does look like that is what Godlyness is going to do. So he's just going to move, going to take cover, probably take the objective, and not have to worry about spending a force on force jump or anything like that. I mean, 1 force is essentially free at this stage because of stick to the plan from the objective, the Shatterpoint objective, being able to, you know, give you a force point. But it looks like that's not. Oh, yep. We might be going for the jump. And remember, guys, that we also have a protection and steadfast being turned online for 5th brother, because if he's sitting on an active objective, that is his prerogative. All right, so I've got the chat up now, guys. So if you do want to say anything or contribute or, you know, participate, feel free. I can see exactly what you guys are saying now. Unfortunately, Streamlabs is not letting me see the chat, but I do have it on my phone. Okay, so yeah, we're just going to score 3 for Godlyness. We're going to essentially take that point for 5th brother. I think that's fine. I don't think that, you know, we wanted anything else really. And now we are, of course, just measuring for the Night Sister shenanigans, who can try and get that point. We would be able to also get Mother Talzin out there at least to make some attacks, I think. But I'm not sure if that's going to be what Richmid wants to do. I think usually you don't want to pull Savage this early. I am interested to see what Richmid was thinking with the reserve of Mother Talzin. I mean, obviously she's an incredible piece. She's a fantastic ranged unit. But a lot of the time, you know, it might just be worth just bringing her up, getting her into a really good position. So once your allied units start getting wounded, she can just sort of, you know, retaliate and push people back off with her really, really good combat tree. So, yeah, I have seen her be reserved, and I've seen her played really early as well. So it's probably just player preference at this point. So we're thinking, we're just thinking about some movements off of Mother Talzin's identity here, I think. Oh, sorry, Mother Talzin's active ability. Or tactical ability, I should say. And Richmid is just moving around and doing some pre-measuring here in terms of where he wants to go. So that's essentially what we are doing. And it looks like he's decided to draw, and he's pulled the Shatterpoint. So probably not what we want, but it could also just be good to get Maul up there and take fifth brother off the point, refresh some force, or we could just shuffle the Shatterpoint back in and save it for later. I mean, this force, neither of these rosters are particularly struggling for force, especially on this mission. But it does look like we will be going for Darth Maul. And while I did say that it will be good to get Maul taking fifth brother off the point, I don't think we'll have the range at all from where we are. We do have the ingress point, which is really nice, and there will be the potential to grab fifth brother from range 3, so we might be able to get him, but it's going to be a tight range. It's going to be very tight, so I'm not entirely sure if that will work. Okay, so thanks so much everyone for joining us here. If you have just joined, let me know. Chuck a hello in there and let me know whether or not you're going for Richmid or if you are in fact going for Godlyness. So we've got Maul on Maul action, but very different takes on Maul. So Maul under Godlyness is of course supporting the Inquisitorius, and Maul under Richmid has decided to come back home to Dathomir and do Mother Talzin's bidding. So some very, very different takes on Maul. So it's going to be a very different playstyle, which is very exciting. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've done. I think we're going to probably keep the Shatterpoint. I wouldn't mind seeing that reserved, to be honest, or shuffled back into the deck, purely just because I'm not entirely sure what we do with it, but it does look like Richmid has just refreshed his force, so we are going to stick with the Shatterpoint, and we are potentially activating the Super Mandalorian commandos here, or it could be Gar Saxon as well, who's just used Pride of the Mandalore to dash one of the Mandalorians or jump one of the Mandalorians instead. Yeah, so it looks like it was Gar Saxon. So now he's going to do a move. He'll get to trigger Mandalorians are Stronger Together thanks to the Pride of the Mandalore jump down there. And then he might even be able to have a sneaky little pot shot at one of the units with his range 5 gun. But we will have to see. So there's the movement. This is the move action that will trigger Mandalorians are Stronger Together. Range 5 is a long way. I think you'll probably be able to have a little snipe at Obi-Wan or one of the bounty hunters in the lead there, which is pretty cool. Just trying to draw out that mind trick unit ability. I think he won't have the movement though. I think he'll just be short. Yeah, the base size looks like it's just going to be short there. So Gar Saxon does get a hunker token after he gains a focus, but unlike Bo, he won't unfortunately be able to do a little dash for free. So Bo is definitely the faster of the pair, but Gar Saxon doing that range 5 big doof attack is very, very strong. But this is also really valid. So, if you double up a point, let's say, he takes cover and then does a little jump onto Savage's point up in the top, then it'll be really difficult even for Maul to displace one of these characters. So I think that is nice. Or he could leave them up the back and just double hunker, basically. I'm not entirely sure what we want to do. I'd probably be tempted to actually reinforce the point up the top. I mean, it's not like Gar Saxon is the incredibly fragile or anything like that. I mean, he's got 9 health. He's got Beskar armor. He'll have double hunker. So yeah, leaving him on that point might actually make it really difficult for Godlyness to come in and start swinging 4. But if Godlyness pulls Maul here or something like that, then he'll get a pretty early lead in the struggle. So I think I probably would have taken Gar and put him on the midline point there alongside Savage just to really reinforce that point and make sure that it's very difficult for Godliness to take it back. And of course we draw Maul. So here we go. Looks like we drew the Grand Inquisitor and then we put him in reserve and then we've drawn Maul. And this is exactly what I was sort of worried about. I think now we'll have the ability for Godliness to score 4 and really start putting the pressure on in this struggle. What do you guys think about that play? So as we were saying before, Savage is really good and adept at taking a point unless your opponent has access to early pins or early exposes, and that is of course what Maul has access to with his There Is No Place to Run. So not only is he going to be able to pull Savage within pull Savage within 2 towards Maul, he'll also be able to expose him, which will turn off Savage's access to his jump on his unnatural resilience tree. So this is exactly what we're seeing. But had Gar been there, you would have had the opportunity to not only stay alive, but maybe backstop yourself up against these crates, etc., to prevent him from being pushed off the objective. So that is what I would have done, I think. But of course, who knows? We'll have to see. There is every chance that Maul does, of course, one-shot one of these characters. It is his prerogative. But let's have a look at the dice results. So we are going into Savage. The damage doesn't really matter at this stage. It's mainly just getting the point. It will be no blocks, but it'll only be 4 successes for Maul as well. So let's have a look at Maul's combat tree. Are we in Dark Rage? No, we're in Sinister Cunning. If you guys haven't played Maul or you're wanting to start experimenting with Maul, I'd recommend just staying in Sinister Cunning and seeing how that goes. He's in Dark Rage so Richmid is in Dark Rage, but Godlyness is in Sinister Cunning. So he's got 4 successes. So he's going to be able to do 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage, including the expertise, which will go down to 6, of course, thanks to Savage's protection and steadfast. He gets some repositions, he gets some shenanigans, some healing, etc. So that's a really nice thing for Godliness. And this is where I think, now he's got 4. He's just scored 4, and it'll be pretty difficult for Richmid to, to take this back, especially considering that he's got the Grand Inquisitor in reserve. But it's not over, of course. It's definitely not over in terms of this struggle. So we'll see what we get from Richmid. We've drawn a Maul of our own. So Maul on Maul, that's pretty good. So you can essentially do exactly the same thing that Savage did. And then, of course, we do have Mother Talzin in the bag. So assuming Savage doesn't get wounded here before Mother Talzin's activation, we can, of course, just dash Savage back on the point unless he's been pinned. No, he's been exposed again. Yep. So it looks like Godliness chose the expose instead of the pin, which will allow Mother Talzin to just dash Savage back on the point. And even if he doesn't manage to displace Maul, he will be able to double out that point if he puts Maul up there. So, yep, some good plays from Richmid in terms of what he can do. A lot of good plays coming up. And I probably would have been more tempted to put the pin on Savage there instead of the expose. And there's some really tricky things you can do with Mother Talzin's life drain as well. I mean, she has the capacity to really get rid of some of these cheeky little conditions, which is nice. I'll just show you this card here. So life drain, after an allied Dathomirian character makes an attack, if the defender has suffered 1 or more damage, this unit may use this ability, and the attacking Dathomirian character may heal once. So, if Maul was close enough to Savage, he could heal a pin or an expose or something similar. So there's a lot of really cheeky uses for that life drain ability. So we are using There Is No Place to Run on Maul. I don't actually know if that's going to be able to get him off the point here. Godliness placed Maul in a really good position, but all Richmid's Maul needs is a single success to get the push, unless he's staying on Dark Rage, in which he'll need a few more successes, and he is staying on Dark Rage. Okay, so dangerous, but it is exposed Maul, who's just nattied 4 blocks, so that's really good. But we've got some really good crits. Okay, cool. So it balanced out there, which is very nice to see. So it's going to be 3 crits going through, which is going to be the 1 push that we require to displace Maul, I think. So it's going to be 3 crits and a damage from the expertise tree, which is going to equate to you'd need to do 6 damage and a shove, which will get Maul off, of course. But yeah, that's another reason why I think Sinister Cunning is so strong. The 1 success push is beautiful, combined with the reposition on 2, the healing on 4. There's just so much capacity for good stuff on Darth Maul's combat tree being Sinister Cunning. So there we go. And of course, we will see the life drain ability if remembered, which will allow that 3 damage to go down to 2 on Darth Maul, and there it is. We've just seen the damage reduced by Richmid from the life drain ability from Mother Talzin. So that will be 3 points scored for Richmid, and then of course, if Godlyness doesn't do anything about Savage. In his activation, we can pull Mother Talzin and we can start dashing Savage onto that point just to really lock it down, and we can start flipping this struggle. But I still think I would have been happier seeing Gar Saxon go into the midline there, but that's just me. I'm not sure what we're rolling for here. Looks like we actually rolled 1 too few dice, but it won't do any changes to the math there. And I'd like to see Richmid flip over into Sinister Cunning after the attack. He's hovering. He is hovering. Yep, he's just flipped over, which is good. And it looks like, Godliness has been pushed out. Richmid will score. He'll gain 1 momentum for being still on Godliness' side, and he will score 3, of course. So let's see how Godliness responds. So we do have OB2 being drawn. He's pretty good. He can, I think, max out at 7 damage. So he is capable, of course, of dealing with Savage here, but he won't be able to take the point off of Maul at this stage. So he's just going to probably position himself into range 3 of everyone, just to make sure that his mind trick works a treat, which will be really, really strong, but he won't be able to displace anyone. Okay, yep. So he can displace Maul if he gets the second success push. Sorry, I thought he was just deciding to stay up on the ATST and not try and have a crack at Maul. But Maul's got a really good expertise tree on Sinister Cunning as well. So unless we get some good crits, which we haven't, yep. So it's only going to be 1 success through on Darth Maul from the crit, which would just be a heal and a damage on Maul and no shoves, which means that Maul will remain on that point, of course. So yeah. It'll go 3 points back to Godliness. This is a relatively quick struggle, and I think we probably draw Mother Talzin here just to get a little bit more in the action. We can lock down that point with Savage because of Mother Talzin's obscuring shadows. She can dash Savage onto the point, and that'll make it very difficult for Godliness to then take it off Richmid. That's probably what I would do. Nope, we've decided to go for the Night Sisters. Okay, not a problem at all. So the Night Sisters can, of course, take the point off of Godliness and flip it to score 4 now for Richmid, but I'm not sure if he wants to go that close up into Fifth Brother's face with those Night Sisters. They are pretty fragile, but I think I'd still probably want the points. I mean, scoring 4 gives both players a momentum. It really puts Godliness now on the back foot in terms of how many points he can score. And you could potentially get this struggle won out here. I would also be really tempted to go Mother Talzin. I've not seen Richmid play Mother Talzin before, so that is going to be really interesting as well, just to see how he approaches things. I mean, he's in the elimination round, so he's definitely doing something correct. So yeah, really, really keen to see some high-end Mother Talzin play. So yeah. Very, very cool. So we've had 1 move from the Night Sister, and looks like we're actually maybe not going to be going for the objective, and instead going crossing the board, jumping down that ingress point down there, and having some shots at Obi-Wan Kenobi, maybe just to draw out that cheeky little mind trick. And we will get some extra dice as well, thanks to a Pack Hunter-like ability, because Obi-Wan Kenobi is indeed engaged with a Dathomirian. So it looks like the first attack is going to be into Fifth Brother. Fifth Brother does have a hunker. And so, yep, let's see what we get. So it's going to be 3 blocks into 4 strikes. So 1 success will go through, and I think that's just a first success pin. On the Night Sisters, it is. So no damage, but it will be a pin. No damage because of protection and steadfast. And of course, let's have a look at the ability here. It's called Night Hunter. So because Obi-Wan is engaged with another Dathomirian unit, being Savage, these Night Sisters will be able to add 2 to their attack dice. So just thinking about maybe a mind trick. We've decided not to mind trick it. There's no capacity for these Night Sisters to wound Obi-Wan in 1 shot. So let's have a look at what they get. So it will be 7 into 4, so 3 successes going through there, which is quite nice for the Night Sisters. Going to be some conditions, remembering that Obi-Wan is indeed immune to expose. So we could go this is a weird thing. So basically, because the damage is applied from the damage pool at the very end of the step, but Obi-Wan heals from the the what's it called? Yeah, greater purpose. So as soon as he gains the immunity as soon as he gains an exposed token, he can heal. But because the damage is applied at the very end of the step, he actually can't have, he can't be healing any damage because it's not been applied yet. So anyway, I think we've maybe done it incorrectly, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we've pulled the bounty hunters, and then now it's Godlyness's turn to take that point back and score 4 again. So that's essentially what we're going for here. There's a lot of reluctance to bring our supporting units into the center line, and I think it's understandable. But yeah, maybe some faster scoring would have been taking place to take these struggles a little bit earlier. So here we're going to see on the trail trigger from the bounty hunters. That is their tactical ability. They get a free dash towards an enemy character, any enemy character on the board. So they'll be able to be relatively quick. So we could actually see the bounty hunter that's measuring right now move all the way over to the other side and support Fifth Brother there, just to lock down that area. But we also could just double body up Obi-Wan Kenobi's objective there as well. So there's a few options that we've got for the bounty hunters, and it looks like we're just going to try and support Obi-Wan. You could leave one character on the back line there, which I think is a probably good idea, just to make sure that back objective cannot be taken off of you. But yeah, then we can, of course, double up the bodies with Obi-Wan, and we have Maul in the back there, so that'll be 3 units potentially threatening that objective to Richmid's 2. So yeah, very interested to see what we do. We haven't seen Mother Talzin. There's been no wounded units yet, so we haven't seen Mother Talzin be able to be triggered. Okay, so we are going to be leaving the back objective uncontested, which does open up a few options for Richmid, thanks to, Maul, Gar Saxon, and these Mandalorians as well. So there's a few things we can do. And it looks like we might be going for the one shove on Maul that we need to get him off the point, and then maybe even trying to put a wound into or some conditions onto Savage Opress. So we're just deciding on our target priority here. So while that's happening, guys, if you're just tuned in, say hello in the chat. I know we've got the Cam Damage, who's the other half of the slug, saying that this is a sick table. It is a sick table. I very much enjoy it. There's some cool smoke. All right, so this is the first bounty hunter attack, and it looks like we're going into Savage first. Savage is exposed, and he gets nothing there. So it'll be 3 successes going in for the bounty hunters, I believe, unless their first success is just a damage. Let me have a look. No, so yeah, 3 successes into Savage Opress. Let me just get over to here. He does have protection and steadfast, and he's got 6 damage. So there's no ability for them to wound, and they won't be able to push him. So they probably just go the bottom tree here and put 3 damage on and a pin, which is exactly what we've done. And let's see who's attacking. Looks like the next one's going into Maul, and they will get the crits that they need to push him as well. So no hits will go through, no strikes, but there will be 2 crits, which can of course just be 2 damage and a shove. So Godlyness has really, really locked down that objective up the top there. And this is sort of what I was saying about maybe getting Gar Saxon up there and cementing that point, or maybe going with with Mother Talzin a little bit earlier, just to activate Obscuring Shadows and get Savage back on the point. And now he's got the pin, so it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to, actually use Obscuring Shadows on Savage. Maul is of course still an option, but it's not going to give you much in the way of actually taking objectives back. So that's what we're looking at. So let's have a think. What have we got with Richmid? We could go, looks like we've drawn the Mandalorian Super Commandos. That's a pretty good activation. One of them is fairly far away, but he will be able to enter the fight with a move and a jump, which is pretty good. But now we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi firmly in the fight. So he'll really, really be able to, cause some havoc, unfortunately, with his mind trick. All right. So who are we going for, guys? Are we going for Richmid, or are we going for Godlyness? What do we fancy? Are we a UK supporter, or are we an American supporter? I am undoubtedly neutral. being here in sunny Australia. I do not have to pick a side. But looks like we've done a move action with the Mandalorians. We have triggered Stronger Together, thanks to Gar Saxon being on that cliff there. And now... Oh, okay, sorry. That was a jump first, just to use the ingress point for the rear Mandalorian. And now we're getting to do a move action, which will, of course, also trigger Mandalorians Stronger Together should they stay within range 2 of each other, which will be, I think, a pretty simple task here. And there we go. So we've had a move with the cliff side Mandalorian. And we will be able to attack both Obi-Wan Kenobi and one of the bounty hunters, so that'll really lessen the impact of the mind trick, especially considering that they get so many extra dice. But yeah, we'll have to see what Godlyness responds. So it looks like we're prioritizing the bounty hunters here with the Mandalorian Super Commandos. And we'll have to see. It looks like 2 force were just spent for Mind Trick. So we're going to lose the focus action on that attack and have a crack into Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. Here we go. So the reason that it goes from 8 dice to 4 dice, guys, is because not only do we lose 1 attack dice... Sorry, not only do we lose 2 attack dice, but we also lose the focus action as well. So it was still a great roll, though. So it's going to be 2 crits going into Obi-Wan Kenobi with those Mandalorian Super Commandos expertise tree. They're so savage. So we'll probably put a strain on him or a disarm. I'd probably prefer the strain just to really switch off that mind trick. And remember, reactive abilities can only be used once per turn, so there's no opportunity for mind trick to happen again. And the Mandalorians are going to try and finish off Obi-Wan here, which is a good amount of, it's good amount of dice. So let's have a look. We got 3 blocks with Obi-Wan Kenobi and a whopping amount of dice. Yep, so 6 down to 3, so that should be able to put him down. How much damage do we have left? 3 successes. I don't actually think can do 5, but let's have a look. No, we can't do... Oh, yeah, we can. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if we go straight through the middle, because he is already strained, of course. So that will be a wounded... Oh, no, we're just condition stacking him. Okay, interesting. All right, so we're just condition stacking Obi-Wan Kenobi, not going for the wound there, which is interesting. That might mean that we don't want to... get the momentum. Oh, okay, so we're instead going for the jump, which I think is also a really good option up the back there to take that objective off of Godlyness and still score 3 points for Richmid. So yeah, that's an absolutely fair play. That's probably why I would have left one of those bounty hunters up the back, just to make sure that this doesn't happen. And yeah, we've got some really good conditions put onto Obi-Wan Kenobi there, which is really strong. So it will be 3 points scored for Richmid, unless he's deciding not to. Okay. So is this point flipped? We've only got 2 for 2 here. That shouldn't be a flip for Richmid, because we didn't wound Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Still scored 3. We didn't wound Obi-Wan. I'm just going to ask in the chat, because the bounty hunters haven't been wounded and the... bounty hunters haven't been wounded and neither have the... neither has Obi. That objective shouldn't flip. Should it? Obi and bounties not wounded. So 2, 4, 2. Oh, so they did end up wounding Obi. Okay, my bad. Okay, so they did end up wounding Obi. They just didn't put the token on. Okay, cool. So that's fine as well. I mean, more than fine. Obi will get a few extra dice, but now Mind Trick, of course, will cost more, etc. Yeah, so I thought I was playing General Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course, with 10 health instead of 8. So my bad there, guys. Apologies. But yeah. Okay. All right, so what are we going to have next? Looks like we've pulled a Shatterpoint. So that is an interesting pull for Godliness. We need 4 points and a momentum to win. So if we are able to wound one of these characters over here, we do indeed take the struggle. And Maul is probably the best bet to do that. So if we go Maul, not only will we gain a force back, but we will have the potential to have a crack into, let's say, a Richmid's Maul. So six damage is only 3 successes for a Maul on a Sinister Cunning or on a Dark Rage. So I think that's probably the play here. Mother Talzin is way too far away to have any impact on the board. So her revenge shots won't have any influence. And I think that's probably what we want to do. We want to go for Maul, have a crack at Richmid's Maul, and then put him on the board, on that objective, which will of course outnumber, and that will win the struggle. So I think that's what Godliness is probably thinking about and mind simming at the moment, and it's probably worth doing. That being said, do we want to take one more activation or two to try and set ourselves up for the next struggle? Richmid's done a really good job of controlling his back points, whereas I don't think Godliness will have any points on the objective. Any models on his back objectives here, which will make it really hard going into struggle 2 to maintain some of that momentum. But we'll see. We are going for Maul, but we're not going for Richmid's Maul. We're instead going for the Mandalorian Super Commandos, and it looks like we're thinking about flipping into Dark Rage, but might have thought against it. Okay. So we are going for the Mandalorian Super Commandos. It is a tall task to do 8 damage. We'll have to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We do have to get 5 results in and make sure that we roll an expertise. But with an expose and some good damage, we definitely can do it. I'm not sure if we did spend the health there for There Is No Place to Run, but if we did, we'll be pretty happy. So we did get 5 successes, but yeah, it looks like we've blocked at least 1. So there won't be the capacity to wound the Mandalorian Super Commandos there. So let's see how many steps they go up their little combat tree. So Maul on his Sinister Cunning side can do quite a bit. So he's got 4 successes there, so he'll be able to do 7 damage, which is good. Do some heals, do some repositioning, maybe even put Maul on the back point just for now, just to give him some presence, on that rear point. But he still will score 4 if he leaves Maul there, so that's pretty good. So there's the push. That'll be enough. That'll be enough. And he will get to heal 2 from his 4th combat step. And yeah, I think that's where we end up, because we didn't quite get that 5th success that we needed. Very, very good. We will flip the point. We won't score a momentum, so we won't win the struggle, but it is looking pretty solid for Godliness at this stage. Looking pretty solid for Godliness at this stage. All right, so let's have a look at what Richmid has pulled. He hasn't pulled anything just yet, but we are thinking probably about, that Mother Talzin activation. And we've also, I think we've just got Mother Talzin. Who else is it? Mother Talzin and, no, it's not Shatterpoint. It's Mother Talzin and Maul. So some really quality activations for Richmid coming in here. Mother Talzin could, of course, move and have a shot into, I think she might be able to have a crack into Fifth Brother. And then, of course, do some manipulating hands to move him off the point, which would be pretty nice. But she really probably wants to get that wound down there onto someone so she can start her journey up into the center of the board, because she can be quite slow. I think she might be the slowest primary in the game. I think she is the slowest primary in the game, but that is of course circumvented by her ability that's called Wrath of the Great Mother. So as I was saying before, guys, if your opponent wounds any of your friendly units, she does get to do a dash and then make a 5 dice ranged attack at the targeting enemy character. We've pulled Gar Saxon. Okay, sorry, that's right. We activated Gar Saxon with the Shatterpoint. So Gar Saxon is our last character in the pool here. And of course, Richmid can try and flip that point again. We've got 2 characters, I think, on the same elevation as the point here. because I think we're too high with the other bounty hunter. That's probably counted as an extra or a different elevation. So yeah, we have two characters that we need to try and remove, and Gar Saxon's pretty adept at having a crack at enemy mauls or something similar. We won't be able to use Mind Trick off Obi-Wan Kenobi because we do have a wounded Obi-Wan there, and I'm not sure who we're shooting at though. It's going to be 6 dice, so it will be into Maul just to try and wound him, and that is a fantastic roll for Maul. That's 6 blocks, but 3 expertise on Gar Saxon. What does that do? We've got 1 crit and a shove going through, so that's definitely not what we wanted to see from Richmid. That's going to be just the 1 crit going through there, which is savage. I think it's only 2 damage, and that is probably going to spell the loss of struggle 1 for Richmid, but we can get, of course, Richmid choosing the objective layout for the next struggle and moving forward like that. I'm just going to have a sip of coffee. Okay, so the reason that we got a shove there, guys, is because of Gar Saxon's expertise tree. So on his Galar 90, he does get an expertise tree shove. And that, of course, is really nice because shoves that are coming from the expertise tree do circumvent things such as Steadfast. So that's one really good way to deal with, characters like Fifth Brother or clones or Savage Press, etc. So yeah, he can be very good. Very good indeed. All right, so what's the next pull for Godliness? So that's Django. That's probably, I almost would have rather go for Grand Inquisitor there because Django has such a great board presence and he can really sort of rearrange the board in struggle number 2, especially if you're, down 1 or 2 objectives. He can capture wire people off objectives. He can shove people off his combat tree. He can move really, really quick as well if he's got enough force. So anyway, that is not what we see, but we can, of course, reinforce that back point with Django and have a crack at the Mandalorian Super Commandos. Maybe for the wound, we only need 1 more damage, and that is indeed who we're going for. It feels like a waste to wound the Mandalorian Super Commandos here, just because the momentum means nothing for Django or for Godliness, just because you're going to win the struggle anyway. So maybe controlling another character would be better. And yeah, I think that's probably what we want to do. Take maybe a forced jump and have a shot at Gar Saxon, which is exactly what Godliness is measuring for now. And I think that is the better play. Yeah, I think that is the better play. Not entirely sure if we'll get there. Yep. Okay, cool. So we're good to shoot into Gar Saxon, and I think that is better because, as I was saying, guys, if you do wound the Mandalorian Super Commandos now, it doesn't do anything really. You know what I mean? You don't get it. You technically get the momentum, but it's a waste just because you're about to win the struggle anyway. So this is 6 dice into Gar Saxon, who does have a hunker token, I think, at this stage. So it's going to be 3 criticals. Oh no, maybe he doesn't have the hunker because of engagement. But 3 crits go through and the strikes are all blocked. So 3 crits is going to be, I think, 6 or 7, maybe 5. It's been a while since I played Django. 5 damage and a strain, or 3 damage and a strain, and he gets a free trigger. So he could use capture wire on someone, maybe even on the Mandalorian Super Commandos there, just to put a pin on them, which will be pretty nice, I'd say. So we'll see what he ends up doing. I think capture wiring the Mandalorian Super Commandos is nice. Yep, there we go. We do see that. Okay, very cool. Very cool indeed. So that will be the struggle 1 win for Godliness over here. So I'll just update the overlay so you guys can see there. I've put the overlay up. So Godliness now has a card underneath his struggles 1 section there, and we'll see what we pull next for Richmid. Let's have a look. So we've pulled didn't expect a welcome party, so we've still got stick to the plan, so we've still got forced regeneration, which is nice, I'd say, for all the characters. All the players involved. And we are facing Richmid, so we've got either the back left objective, which Godliness has no hold over, the center, which neither of them control, or the back right. So this is what Richmid's done really well. He's got control of both of his back points, and he's decided to go for the vertical, the diagonal where where Godlyness has no character up the back. So I think that's really good. He might even be able to use Obscuring Shadows to dash one of those Night Sisters into the center, and it looks like it is the objective that he already controls as the priority, so that's really nice. So we've only got Mother Talzin left in the bag. Don't forget Obscuring Shadows, of course, which might actually be able to put this Night Sister up on this big ledge here, of course, onto the point in the center. So we'll have to have a look. Savage is, of course, pinned, so there's also the potential just to remove the pin off of him. I would measure for it. Yeah, there we go. So I think she can get there. I mean, and that's perfect, right? That's absolutely perfect. So yeah, Obscuring Shadows on the Night Sisters, just moving in to claim those two objectives and start putting Mother Talzin in a position where she really has some good agency over the board with her retaliatory attacks. And this is really where she'll start to shine. I mean, Savage is one away from being wounded. The Mandalorian Super Commandos are one away from being wounded. Maul is 6 away from being wounded, and he's actually pretty fragile. So yeah, Mother Talzin's really about to pop off here, I think, which is going to be really, really strong. So she probably just does a move and maybe even a take cover just to get into position. She might actually be able to hit that ingress point, which will be really quite handy, to be honest. So let's have a look. She will. Okay, great. So she actually gets to actually do some combat attacks, combat actions. So who would we go into here? We've got Maul being pretty close to being wounded, so that's nice. Who else have we got? Bounty Hunters are full, so really it's just going to be Maul that is close to being wounded. Let's have a look at Mother Talzin's combat tree. So she can do an expose and a pin in 3 successes, and that's probably really nice for Darth Maul. Unfortunately, that would also wound him, but who are we going for? It looks like we're measuring into the Bounty Hunters over there, so let's have a look. And we're measuring for a coordinated fire expose, which we've also got. So yeah, Bounty Hunters will be exposed, and Mother Talzin gets to roll a good deal of attack dice into them. So yeah, she's great. I really like Mother. We've got a tournament coming up in January here in Australia, and I'm strongly thinking about taking Mother Talzin alongside Maul myself. But we'll see how that ends up going. So that's a really good roll from Mother Talzin. Let's have a look. So that's 4 successes at least, plus 3 expertise. So her expertise will add another 3. So 7 successes total, which is beautiful, into 2 blocks. So 5, which will be, of course, her whole tree. Okay, beautiful. So that will be the wound on the Bounty Hunters. I think she can do 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, she can actually do 10. So I would just do middle, top, for the 5 damage and a pin and an expose, and then the shove. And she could even use her reposition to get more centrally into the middle of the board. Can she wound? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so if she doesn't pin, she can actually go straight across the middle here and also get a reposition, which might be really handy in terms of putting her into the center of the board there. And then she can also measure for a manipulating hand or something similar as well. So yeah, she can be an absolute savage. So we've done enough damage to the Bounty Hunters. We haven't put any of those conditions on, so I don't think we're doing the pin, which means that move just then was a reposition. And it looks like we're also measuring for a manipulating hand, which we are doing. And that is a beautiful Mother Talzin activation there. So really controlling Maul, getting a second body onto that centerline point, making it really difficult for Godlyness to take back. Really good way for Richmid to start this struggle. So fantastic. And it looks like Maul also had a strain on him, so that manipulating hand will do another point of damage. Like more damage, and that's why we actually got the 2 momentum there onto Richmid's side. So that's a beautiful start, and it's going to be a Grand Inquisitor activation to wrap us up on Godlyness's turn as well. So Richmid's just finished his deck, will of course get all his force back, etc. And Grand Inquisitor's looking like he's not going to have a fantastic turn here, just moving himself and moving probably the 5th brother closer to the center here to try and put a little bit of pressure on, and that's about it, I'd say. Might even be able to do a lightsaber throw with the Grand Inquisitor. Chuck a, what has he got? A measly 4? Cheeky little 4 dice. 5 dice, excuse me. So he could actually do a 5 dice throw and then flip over into his more defensive expertise tree. Okay, and he might even have a throw at these Night Sisters who are not hunkered at this stage. But yeah, that's exactly what we're doing here. So he's just going to move up forward after he did his self-advance and do a 5 dice lightsaber throw into the Night Sisters, who do have 4 defense dice against ranged. 5, excuse me. Super clones, basically. All right. Okay, 3 expertise is not bad. The Night Sisters will indeed get a cheeky reposition off 2 expertise, I believe. So 3 expertise on the Grand Inquisitor. Let's have a look at that. Oh, he's flipped over into Form 5 Gem. So I think we've just completely blocked that that roll. Okay, yeah. Oh no, we did 2 damage. Okay, cool. 2 damage went through onto the Night Sisters, and looks like Richmid is, really cementing this struggle. He's got another priority objective on his side. So if we pull something similar, so if we get the Grand Inquisitor off that point up the back and get a wound, we can of course win the struggle out. I don't know if Richmid is going to want to dive that deep for it, but it will be interesting to see. Who have we pulled? Mother Talzin. Okay, so I mean, Mother Talzin could pretty much just win it there. She could manipulating hand the Grand Inquisitor off of the point. She could go for a wound onto who's nearly wounded. Oh, no one. Okay, so it's actually not that likely that we get the wound there with Mother. She could maybe go for Django, who's I think the most fragile of the bunch. In terms of getting him exposed. If he doesn't have access to his Beskar armor expertise tree, he does become very, very fragile. So we could go for an Obscuring Shadows to move the bottom, the closest Night Sister just here, up forward a little bit with a dash, then get the exposed coordinated fire onto Django and hope for 10 damage on Mother Talzin's beautiful expertise tree, beautiful combat tree. So that is an option. She could get the reposition if she went that far as well, and potentially manipulating hand Grand Inquisitor off the point. But I think if you get the reposition, Mother Talzin actually maxes out at 8, which means Django cannot be wounded. So I think this is probably just a point where you could actually reserve Mother Talzin and make sure that she gets the activation that she wants when she wants it. Because if you're not likely to get a wound on anyone, there's probably no point in really rushing that struggle. So I think, maybe even just reserving Mother Talzin. Okay, no. So we're going to do it. All right, sweet. So what we've done here is we are going for a Obscuring Shadows onto Savage, who will clear his pin. And then we also get to use Unwitting Brute onto Savage. It looks like we're not actually doing that. And we've coordinated fire and expose into the Grand Inquisitor here, who has blocked 1. So that's a really good expertise roll. And oh my goodness, are we actually going to see it? So that's 4, that's 7. So we're actually going to get the wound. We are actually going to get the wound there onto Grand Inquisitor if we decide to take the top tree. So let's have a look. What a roll. What a roll. So, we could either do a whole bunch of conditions and a reposition to put ourselves on that point, or we could just wound him and threaten the point, threaten the struggle. I don't know what I'd prefer here. I think leaving him on 1 health remaining with a whole bunch of conditions would be pretty nice. No, okay, so we've just gone the 10, so he'll end up with a expose, double shoved, and he'll just be wounded. So Mother Talzin could indeed follow up, she didn't actually do any other action, so Richmid just wins the struggle. So he's done the wound, which I thought was pretty unlikely, and he can follow up twice and then reposition, or just do an actual move action to take the point, which is pretty tasty. What an activation. What an activation from Mother Talzin. She is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So here's the second shove. We'll get a follow-up with Mother Talzin. So it looks like Richmid is just sort of crawling up the mid of the board here. And he'll be able to do a reposition on the inside of that objective there, should he decide to take it. When I say reposition, guys, I do mean a move action. I'm sorry. I've been getting ahead of myself there. We didn't trigger Unwitting Brute, unfortunately, but we have just triggered a life drain to heal a damage off of Savage. And then here we go. We get a move action to take the point. I really was not expecting her to one-shot Grand Inquisitor. That's fantastic. But I guess with a coordinated fire expose, it's not out of the realms of possibility. So fantastic play from Mother Talzin. Fantastic dice results. And we have just won the struggle for Richmid. So let me just update the tracker one more time. Wow. Quick struggle 2. There we go. So I've just updated the tracker for everyone. And now we're firmly in the end zone here. How exciting. So we've got a few more viewers in the chat. If you have just joined us, thank you for joining us. You're watching the Space Slugs. My name's Tom. We're watching the top 16 from the Never Tell Me the Odds League. Godlyness up against Richmid. Let me know, who are you going for? Are we supporting Richmid or are we supporting Godlyness here? And if you're watching this later on YouTube, chuck us a like, chuck us a subscribe. It really helps us out and justifies me doing this for a few hours a week. And yeah, thanks very much for watching. All right, so what have we pulled here? Let me just have a look. We've got Signal the Transport. So the beautiful thing about Sabotage Showdown is, of course, that the loser of Struggle 2 does not get to pick the opening layout of Struggle 3. So it is what you get. What you see is what you get. So it's going to be regroup, so removing 1 condition or 2 damage from the Shatterpoint activating unit. And this is the objective layout that we've had. So it's pretty good for Richmid, I think. Let's have a look. The Bounty Hunters control... looks like we're drawing the middle objective here because we've got... Oh no, yeah, so Richmid's going to have this point because Gar Saxon is alive, as are the Mandalorian Super Commandos, and the Bounty Hunters currently have 1 body on the point and they are alive. No one's on the back point here, and Mother Talzin is, of course, alive, whilst the Grand Inquisitor is wounded. So that is what we're looking at the moment. Okay, cool. So, who have we pulled for... Okay, we've pulled Fifth Brother, so I mean that's a perfect draw for Godlyness here. So what he can do is essentially just move. He can even have a cheeky little attack into the Mother Talzin. Doesn't really matter what he does because Inquisitorial Mandate will win the tie for him. So it looks like we're spending a force for a force jump. We're then using the Ingress Point, which is the ATST's legs here. It might have actually just been a climb action instead, and we're going to roll some dice into Mother Talzin. So it's going to be 8 dice. Looks like it was a jump and then a focus. That's what we're looking at. And that's a really good roll for the Fifth Brother. He's angry that his master has just been, knocked aside. So 3 blocks. That's going to be whatever, 2 crits plus whatever the 3 expertise does for Fifth Brother. Let's have a look. So it's going to be... it's going to be 4 going through, yep. So it's going to be a free force repulse or a free force jump should the Grand Inquisitor, should the Fifth Brother decide to do that, which is really cool. And yeah, so that's going to be the point secured. It's going to be, what do we got? 5 damage, an expose, and a strain on the Mother Talzin. And it's going to be 2 points scored for Godlyness. All right, so there's the priority up on No Man's Land, and we can see who we draw. The Night Sisters, I mean, that's, again, perfect draw for Richmid here. So what we could do is we could actually take both points and we could score 4 if we wanted to. We could send the Night Sister down here to take the point up alongside the Mother Talzin. So, Inquisitorial Mandate does kick in, but of course, if you do have 2 units... to Fifth Brother's 1, you still win the point. It just breaks ties. And then you could send this Night Sister up to take the point. And that's a 4-point swing for Richmid, which would be absolutely savage. So yeah, we'll see what we end up deciding to do. I think that's probably the play. Just really put the foot on the gas, support the Great Mother. Because there's not a lot of... there's quite a bit of diceless displacement, really, for Godlyness. We've got, Fifth Brother could go again. We could have Maul coming in, though he's a bit far away. We've got Django, who's really, really close. So it looks like we might actually decide not to be throwing the Night Sisters in. And I've really, really enjoyed the way that Richmid has played his Night Sister acolytes. I've not seen them be so far up the back. And with all the jumps and all their shenanigans, they really can, I think, do that, especially when they're rolling so many dice, thanks to, Savage and Great Mother and Maul being Dathomirians and rolling all those extra Night Hunter dice. So here's a big swing into the Fifth Brother here, which is good. So it's got 2 blocks into, I think, 6 results for the Night Sisters. So it's going to be 4 going through for them, which is really, really good. Let's have a look at their expertise tree. Yeah, so 6. Yeah, so 4 going through, which is nice. That's going to be some expose and some pin. Not a lot of damage thanks to protection and steadfast, but it is what it is. So I'm interested to see why we haven't sent the Night Sister up, just because we could use that jump to, of course, just take 4 and sort of really put the foot on the gas here. But we've decided to play a little bit more cautiously, which I do appreciate as well, keeping those Night Sisters nice and healthy and up the back, and just adding coordinated fire and all those dice, which is really strong as well. And we are going to score 3 for Richmid, of course, here. I think we've got 1 more combat action to go, though. I think that other Night Sister can have a go. And this is a really nice play here as well, because what we've got is this Night Sister doing a jump off of her combat tree. So it looks like we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage down to 4 into the Fifth Brother, and we're using that jump, and then we can use Life Drain on Mother Talzin to get some heals, which will go onto either the Mandalorian Super Commandos or Gar Saxon. Unfortunately, Gar Saxon's just out of range, but if we do use Life Drain, we will take 3 damage on Mother Talzin. We will take 3 damage on Mother Talzin because she is strained. And it looks like we've noticed that and decided not to do it, so that's fine as well. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The point's taken already. And here comes the second shot into the Fifth Brother. So yeah, some really good dice coming through for Richmid. Not in terms of him rolling well, but him rolling a lot of dice because of the way that he's positioned all these Dathomirians. So that's really, really cool. So that's going to be 5, 7. So it's going to be 5, which is the Night Sisters full tree. So really enjoying, as I said, really enjoying the way that Richmid is playing these Night Sister acolytes. I'm very, very impressed. So that can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage into the Fifth Brother, which will, of course, be enough to wound him. And it will be more than that because it'll be 1, 2 because of the pin. So it'll be 8 damage. So yeah, that's definitely a wound. And that is all you need to take the point anyway. Ignore me for trying to get a second body on that point. All they needed to do was wound the Fifth Brother, and Mother Talzin takes it anyway. So that's also a really strong way to do it. And that will still be a 4-point swing and also a momentum for the Richmid. Really good. Really, really, really good. So let's see how Godlyness responds. That is a massive swing. Often some of these players are talking about how it's very unlikely to come back from a 4-point swing in these later struggles. It is definitely possible in struggle 1 of the Sabotage Showdown, just because there is 6 objectives up for grabs. But a 4-point swing, you're controlling everything, is really, really strong. So we'll have to see how Godlyness responds. We've got Django, who can solve a lot of problems for us. We've got Maul, who can also solve a lot of problems for us. There's a lot of diceless displacement here, but we'll have to see what we do. So we haven't drawn the card yet for Godlyness. We have not drawn. We're thinking about maybe going for the Bounty Hunters. So if they go, they need to displace, I think, Gar Saxon to win the point. Yeah, they need to displace Gar Saxon to win the point. So we can trigger on the trail here just to get, this top bounty hunter down off the point, off the AT-ST and onto the point, because currently he's too high in elevation to adequately contribute. And here we go, yep. So looks like we're probably going to double down into Gar Saxon, and we could see a cheeky use of the ability called Tools of the Trade here. So if we use 1 force, we could actually give them impact or sharpshooter 2. So that'll be really strong because then they can both roll quite a lot of dice into Gar Saxon. So we'll see. I haven't seen the force ability spent there, but we'll see how many dice that they roll. So it looks like they just did a focus action instead of actually using tools of the trade, which is fine. So it will be 2 criticals going through, which is the shove that they need to displace Gar Saxon, and that will of course get them the point. Despite any other shenanigans. So I'm wondering who the second character will go into. Probably just the Mandalorian Super Commandos, but that does of course risk the Mother Talzin revenge shot. So I'm not sure if you want to wound people here. It's going to be very interesting to see how we go about it. Looks like we're just going to double up into Gar Saxon. Gar Saxon has 4 health left and has a strain. Let's see. So it's another 3 blocks for Gar, but it is 3 successes going through for the bounty hunters. So we'll have to see. Oh yeah, of course the bounty hunters were wounded by Mother Talzin. I'm so sorry. Okay. Yep. So 4 successes or 3 successes going through. He could decide to wound Gar, and we have decided to wound Gar. So that will be able to trigger Mother Talzin here if we wish. Yep, so it looks like we got a little trigger happy there on scoring the points, and Mother Talzin I think has passed on the the notion of doing her Wrath of the Great Mother just because she's got that strain, and I think that's fair enough. So the priority objective remains on the center point there where they just pinged, and we'll see who Rich pulls. So it is the Shatterpoint. And that's perfect, I think, for Richmid. We've got the ability for Maul to go or something similar. Or if we wanted, we could try and get double wounds out, which would... I mean, it's pretty impossible. Who's alive? Fifth brother is wounded. Yeah, so it's actually only Jango Fett and the Bounty Hunters who are active at the moment. And so yeah, there's not really a capacity to double wound anyone to take the struggle, but we can put the foot on the gas here for Richmid and get Maul in there and maybe cause some problems. I guess the other thing to consider is the Shatterpoint is, of course, the ability where you remove either 2 damage or 1 condition from the activating character. So that is, there is the option to activate a very injured or unhappy character. Like we could potentially go for Great Mother here. Great Mother wouldn't be bad. She could remove the strain or maybe 2 damage from herself, and then maybe do a move action and do some shooting into, let's say, Jango. And you could actually use Obscuring Shadows to get Savage Oppress onto the point, which would not win the point back for you, but it would put you very close to doing so, because Gar's been pushed off there. But it does look like we're going for Maul. So yeah, Maul's removed some damage, and yeah, we're definitely going to be going for Maul. So he's just measuring for there is no place to run here, I think, or just sort of estimating where it will go, and we'll see what he ends up doing. I think, exposing the Bounty Hunters with 2 extra dice, you've got a relatively good shot at exposing and one-shotting these Bounty Hunters from 8 health, just with Maul. He'll be rolling 8 dice, exposed. That's an average of, I think, 6 results there. So, yeah, into like an average of 1 or 2. So, yeah, you got a pretty good chance of one-shotting these Bounty Hunters. It feels bad, but mathematically it's relatively consistent. The dice in Shatterpoint are really... They're really quite good in terms of leveling themselves out, especially when you take away opponents' expertise trees. It turns off a lot of that defensive tech that we love to rely on. So I think we're probably pinging Maul. I feel like we've removed some damage from him. I'm not entirely sure if this there is no way to run will actually be able to move anyone. Looks like we might actually just be measuring for engagement range instead, which is fair enough. So we've just moved Maul into engagement range of the Bounty Hunters. We could still take 2 damage, to trigger There Is No Place to Run onto these guys. Not to move them anywhere, but to instead just give out an exposed token. So we've just taken an extra damage. Looks like the first action or the first thing that Maul did was a force speed. and we're taking 2 more damage here for a there is no place to run. So we'll be on 8 damage, not quite enough to get up to that juicy 3rd dice, but yeah, it will be 8 dice into an exposed bounty hunters, unless we focus as well for a 9th, which is absolutely fair enough. Yep, so there's the exposed token on the bounty hunters. And we're just having a think. I think this is good. You'll be, I think, 1 or 2 away from winning at this point, and you'll take back the point, which is very, very strong. Yep, so there's the 8th damage. Not quite enough for the 9th. And let's just have a look at what he's pinged. Yeah, so he's just pinged that rear bounty hunter there. And I'm just wondering if we've also seen a focus action from Maul, or if we want to try and maybe do a recover action or something to heal as much damage as possible. We'll have to see how many dice are rolled. So it should be 8 at this stage. And if he's focused, then it'll be 9. And we're just hovering around some of the cards here just to maybe think about swapping trees. Yep, we are flipping. I don't know if that's necessary. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can wound them in... I guess, yeah, wounding them in 4 is better than wounding them in 5. Yep, wounding them in 4 is better than wounding them in 5. And it looks like we've had a mind trick spent as well. So it'll go losing 2 dice and adding 2 dice as well. So no blocks for the bounty hunters, but there we go. Yep, so that'll be enough to wound the bounty hunters indeed. So despite the mind trick, we can still, have a crack into another unit there, which is brutal because we did indeed engage both of these bounty hunters with Maul. So despite a 3-force mind trick, unfortunately the bounty hunters have still been wounded. So that'll put Richmid, of course, 1 away from the W, which will make it very difficult for Godlyness to turn this bad boy around. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Yeah, I mean, look at how many wounds we've got on Godlyness' side. We should also have a wound token on 5th Brother. So in fact, the only character that is not wounded at the moment is Django. So it's been an absolutely savage game. Absolutely savage game. So let's have, excuse me. I'm just trying to get this view a little bit nicer. Okay, so the priority really likes to stay on that point at this stage. And we've just got the Shatterpoint pool here, so we have to decide who we want to activate. And I'm not entirely sure what we need to turn this around. I mean, at this stage, Richmid has the Mandalorian Super Commandos and Maul on the point. So we need to not only displace Maul, but we also need to wound the Mandalorian Super Commandos as well. So is there a way that we can do it? I do not know. I think Django is good. So because we've actually got... a pin on the Mandalorian Super Commandos already, we could actually wound the Mandalorian Super Commandos with a capture wire. So that is one way just to wound them straight away. And then you could get Django in there and displace or try and wound Maul, which is, I mean, that'll do it. It'll get you 2 points, and you just got to hope that the priority objective doesn't work out in Richmid's favor. But that's probably the play that I'm looking at here. I'm doing Django Fett. I'm capture wiring. I can move them in any direction because it really doesn't matter, thanks to the fact that they're already pinned and they will be wounded by the capture wire. And then I'm gonna do an attack into Darth Maul as well. So that's what I would do. But I'm wondering if Godlyness has seen it. We are measuring a range 2 off of the Mandalorian Super Commandos, so I think it's probably in his mind. But yeah, the double condition stack there is really good. The extra damage that you get from applying the same condition that someone already has is very strong. So that's where, there is no place to run. Adding another exposed token for a damage, or capture wiring, adding another pin for a damage can be really good. And I think that's what I'm looking for here as Godlyness. So he's just debating what to do. We will have to see where he ends up. We've kept the Shatterpoint. Yep. We have kept the Shatterpoint. I don't really see another way out of this. I mean, you could do it with Maul, but Maul is relying on dice. Because of the wall that is in front of Richmid's Maul here, this little snow barrier, you can't really adequately displace some of these characters. So in my mind, the only adequate way to do this is going Django, automatically wounding the Mandalorian Super Commandos. That will trigger Mother Talzin, but whatever. And then you're desperately trying for a push on Maul, or you're trying to wound him with Django as well, which isn't out of the realms of possibility. I mean, how much? Yeah, so we need 4 damage, which is perfectly reasonable with Django and the amount of expertise. The amount of criticals that he does. So that's totally fine, and that is definitely what I would be looking at doing. Definitely what I'd be looking at doing. But it's not up to me. All right, so it looks like we are throwing our lightsaber into the Mandalorian Super Commandos instead. So we've activated Maul. So this is dicey though, right? It's not a guarantee. I mean, it's likely, but it's not a guarantee. Okay, so we've gotten the results that we need, and we're on Sinister Cunning. So the two expertise is going to equate into another crit. So what we can do is then use that second combat tree reposition to move us into a position where we can, of course, displace. Maul, Richmid's Maul, I should say. So there we go. We're using the reposition. We're going to go over to where he's got the range tool. Then we can use There Is No Place to Run to move Darth Maul off of the point, and essentially we're ending up in the same position that I was talking about with my Django play. And it's actually probably a little bit more reliable than the thing that I was suggesting, I guess. But now you're not getting force regen, you're not getting heals, etc. But yeah, you're still taking the point, which is essentially what you really, really needed to do. So essentially, Godlyness's Maul is taking the place that Richmid's Maul was previously occupying. And now what we really need is Richmid to roll the priority objective exactly where it was. Yep. So this is maybe going to start looking, the favor will be falling into Godlyness. So there's not a lot that Richmid can wound on Godlyness's side. I mean, Maul is now healthy, and Django is healthy as well. But if we do manage to take the position, then we do just win. And let me have a look. So it's the Mandalorian Super Commandos, and that's perfect for Richmid. So they just move into the point, and they will, of course, win the struggle. So really good game there, guys. There was a lot of back and forth. I mean, the first struggle was really interesting to watch. So that was a really, really interesting sort of difference in terms of how both of these players approached their Maul. But yeah, very much congratulations to Richmid there for winning the struggle. But looks like we are going to play the turn out, which is cool, just to try and maybe get some wounds or something similar into Godlyness. So we'll let them play it out, but that will, of course, be the win for Richmid. But yeah, so the play with the Django, I mean, it's just as dicey, I guess. I mean, you're probably more likely to do 1 damage to a Mandalorian Super Commando than you are to 5 damage to Darth Maul. Yeah. So I probably do appreciate that a lot more in hindsight now. So I take back my recommendations. But you could have, of course, rolled like that. So you never know. I mean, dice can be dice, right? That is the one thing about this game that we all know. That said, compared to other miniatures games, I would say that Shatterpoint is a lot more consistent in terms of its dice results. And of course, it's got combat trees, so you can't just be blown out of the water unexpectedly. I mean, there's always a chance, but it's not always a guarantee, So let's have a look. We've just done attack into Jango Fett and done 4 damage, and it looks like we're just going to try and get the wound on Savage as well, which will just, try and get some wounds and maybe break some ties, or maybe make the strength of schedule a little bit stronger for Richmid in terms of the rankings, etc. Probably not worth having another crack into Django. So yeah. I'm not sure what we're doing. I think we just, punch into Savage. Or maybe we've decided to call it. Yeah. Anyway, guys, that will be, of course, the... Oh, are we rolling? No, okay. I think we've ended up there. Okay, guys. So yeah, look, you've been watching the Space Slugs. That was, of course, the top 16 game, or one of the top 16 games from the Never Tell Me the Odds League. Thank you so much for watching. My name's been Tom. Oh, my name is Tom, and you've been watching the Sydney Space Slugs, and of course, congratulations to Richmid for the win there. That was absolutely fantastic. A really good, different take on, Darth Maul underneath Inquisitorius, or Darth Maul underneath the Dathomirians, and I really liked the way that Richmid played those Night Sister acolytes. So some really, really interesting notes for myself to take home there, and yeah, some really, really different ways to approach the game, which I really appreciate getting the chance to watch. So thanks so much for letting me stream, and thank you so much for tuning in, and all the best. Thanks so much, guys. Bye bye.